Καλησπέρα και πάλι και χωρίς καθυστέρηση θα ήθελα να περάσουμε στην επόμενη συζήτηση που στο επίκεντρό της έχει ίσως το κρίσιμο μέλλον της υγειονομικής περίθαλψης της Ευρώπης. Ένα θέμα που το θέμα δηλαδή πώς μπορούν να σχεδιαστούν και να αξιοποιηθούν πολιτικές που θα υποστηρίζουν την καινοτομία, θα διασφαλίζουν την πρόσβαση των ασθενών και θα ενισχύσουν την ανθεκτικότητα των συστημάτων υγείας. Συνομιλητής μου είναι ο κύριος Στέφαν Oelrich, με τον οποίο θα συνδεθούμε, έχουμε ήδη συνδεθεί διαδικτυακά. Ο Στέφαν Oelrich, θα το γυρίσω στα αγγλικά, is a member of the Board of Management at Bayer. He's also first Vice President and Treasurer of the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations. And with decades of experience across global healthcare markets and a clear voice on Europe's pharmaceutical policy, I must admit, he brings a unique perspective from both the industry frontline and the strategic boardroom. Let's dive into the discussion, not miss any more time. So, Mr. Oelrich, hello from Athens.
Hi, everyone.
We're sorry you cannot be here with us today in another rather hot Greek summer day. But let's just start with the discussion that's been ongoing for quite some time now all over Europe, and it has to do with the pharmaceutical package. The Council conclusions have notably diverged from the original European Commission proposal. In your view, what were the most significant changes and what purpose do they serve? Were there in recognition of the industry's concerns, or were they just a political compromise?
So, Kalimera, everyone here, and thanks for having me. And again, I apologize for not being there in person, but I had to attend to other meetings. I'm joining you from Paris, where it's probably equally warm than in Athens right now.
Okay.
And a very nice look at a blue sky on the outside. But back to your question, I think the pharma package, as it is presented now, marks a notable shift from the original proposal that was presented by the European Commission. And while not all changes, let's say while we do expect changes as part of the legislative process, this time they were, I think, carried out against the background of a much, much broader challenge. And the challenge is how to reconcile political consensus with the urgent need to secure Europe's future as a global hub for innovation and health resilience. Among the most significant changes that we've seen is the revision of regulatory data protection, of course, the more conditional and narrow framing of incentives linked to unmet medical needs, and certain flexibilities introduced on manufacturing. These adjustments do reflect important political realities, but also they do underline the impossibility in trying to address affordability, access, and innovation in only one legislation. While we may see some progress in certain areas, the outcome clearly falls short of what is needed in the long term to future-proof Europe's pharmaceutical ecosystem. In an increasingly competitive and volatile global landscape, Europe cannot afford to take a cautious or fragmented approach. We must be far more ambitious than what we see here. Mm-hmm. This is not about preserving the status quo anymore. We must really go beyond that. So we fully support reform, but it must be a reform that meaningfully strengthens Europe's capacity to discover, develop, and deliver the next generation of medicine. And that requires a legislative framework that does provide predictability for investors, incentives for innovation, and of course, practical pathways for faster patient access. So ultimately, the choices we make today will shape Europe's role in global health for decades to come. The pharmaceutical industry stands ready, of course, to work with institutions, member states, and partners like yourselves at SFEE to ensure that the final package supports not only today's needs, but also Europe's long-term strategic health and economic autonomy.
Mm-hmm. Was there something missing from the Commission's proposal?
Well, you know, the package is made up of only two legislations. There is an overall lack of sufficient strong framework to support Europe's global competitiveness in the pharmaceutical innovation. We believe the Council position has helped to reintroduce a degree of balance into the debate, but the overall package still lacks boldness. And it lacks coherence that is required to secure Europe's long-term position as a leader in medical innovation. We must remember that innovation is global, and companies are making strategic investment decisions in a highly competitive, rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. So beyond this package, what's still missing is strong, forward-looking legislation which can support the vision of Europe as a life science powerhouse, one that ensures faster access for patients while also reinforcing incentives for high-risk, high-cost innovation. So we need an entire policy framework to address all aspects of the healthcare ecosystem. This framework must be predictable, stable, and ambitious enough to make the pace of scientific progress and the needs for European citizens. So we hope that the upcoming Life Science Strategy and Biotech Act that is now promised by the new Commission will propose exactly such ambitious solutions in this direction.
Another hot topic that has been circulating around pharma is, of course, potential pharmaceutical tariffs and protectionist measures. How concerned are you that these trends in the context of EU global trade relations are? And would there be any implication, you think, for the pharmaceutical industry, for the pharmaceutical supply chain, and ultimately, at the end of the day, on patient access to medicines?
You know, so I think we are all concerned by what we're seeing geopolitically happening in the world. Yesterday, I was on in a different meeting with the Brazilian Minister of Foreign Affairs. He said the sentence, where trade flows, investment grows. And I think that's something that I really would like to remind all of us. So for us, tariffs on any EU goods have to be avoided at all costs, especially on medicines and their components, after all. Tariffs would clearly damage patient care on both sides of the Atlantic, create shortages, hamper research, and also make cross-border collaboration so much more difficult. So we believe in a rules-based global trade. I think that has been for a long time the cornerstone of our strength in life sciences. So absolutely trade barriers are harmful. Just to give you some numbers, the United States is the European Union's largest pharmaceutical trading partner. We account for more than 1/3 of their exports, and they take 39% of our exports also, so that's what they import. So this is something where you sort of like shoot yourself in the foot if you really want to put a lid on that and reduce the amount of trade. Resilience, however, should not mean isolation. So rather, it requires smart diversification, strategic partnerships, and policies that support investment and secure value-adding manufacturing within Europe and through trusted global alliances.
Many stakeholders have warned that Europe is falling behind in pharma competitiveness, particularly compared to the US and China. How can this trend be reversed, in your view?
Well, first of all, I think everyone in the audience knows, but I'm stating the obvious. We have been falling behind in pharmaceutical competitiveness over decades. Just in the last 20 years, we've lost 25% of our global R&D investment share and 1/4 of clinical trial activity. That is huge. In advanced therapies like cell and gene therapies, the gap is even wider, with the US and China running 2 to 3 times more clinical trials than Europe. So the reasons are very clear. The lack of a coherent industrial policy, growing regulatory uncertainty, or a never-ending regulations, plus underinvestment in our regulatory infrastructure are to highlight here. Europe can only stimulate investment if it focuses on dramatically improving the operating environment in Europe with supportive policies and not inhibitive policies. To turn this around, so Europe needs a very clearly a holistic strategy to reinvigorate the entire pharmaceutical ecosystem. Europe should be able to attract innovators, talent, jobs and investments into research, development, and manufacturing. We also need to accelerate the translation of scientific excellence into healthcare solutions to transform patients' lives and improve the economic stance of this industry. In today's geopolitical climate, I said it in the beginning, this is not just about competitiveness. It's about health resilience. It's about investing into our security, not just on defense, but on more than that. Europe has the talent and also the scientific excellence to lead again, but we need clear direction and unity to make that ambition a reality. So by turning scientific excellence into transformative treatments, Europe can not only improve public health, but can also drive economic growth, which in turn creates a return on investments to support financing new innovations that can improve the lives of patients.
Mm-hmm. So do you think the revised pharmaceutical package does enough to reverse this trend? I mean, and if not, because you're nodding, what would you propose to restore the EU's leadership in biomedical innovation and manufacturing?
I think we're going in the right direction, but it's not sufficient. To truly restore leadership, Europe must provide a sustainable market for innovation, recognized as an investment in health and economic security rather than simply a cost to the system. Secondly, we need to elevate IP protection to levels seen in other pro-innovation regions such as the United States. I would even go beyond that. We need to do better than them if we want to attract more investments. And then thirdly, we need to reignite Europe's life science ecosystem, harmonizing clinical trial approvals across Europe, supporting bold public-private partnerships, and creating a dynamic funding ecosystem for Europeans, biotechs, and life science, small and mid-sized companies. And maybe also, last but not least, develop a world-leading regulatory framework conducive to innovation. So we have the science, we have the talent, we have the potential, but we've really not been able to put this sort of like power on the road and make a difference. The current package should be considered as a foundation, but only as a foundation for future initiatives, such as the European Biotech Act that we're now waiting to see come to life, and that we hope to participate in a little bit more than on the previous package.
So as president of Bayer Pharma, what specific areas of regulatory framework would you like to see improved or reformed to better support companies like yours operating in Europe?
Well, I've mentioned it a little bit already. So regulatory framework must be adapted to the current pace of innovation for Europe to remain truly competitive. What does that mean? It means, for example, modernizing EU regulatory ecosystem and the European Medicines Agency's processes, like we've seen from the FDA. We must significantly speed up review times for new therapies and diagnostics. A critical element linked to this is the further harmonization of clinical trials framework across member states. Different requirements and lengthy approval processes for multi-country trials are a major impediment to bringing innovation to European patients quickly. And then there is, of course, the European Commission that now spearheads a comprehensive program to remove barriers in the single market with an ambitious and clearly defined framework. The goal should be to move towards a more efficient, simplified, and harmonized regulatory framework across all 27 EU member states. Removing single market barriers will allow companies to reduce unnecessary costs and free up capital needed to invest more in innovation and the rollout of new technologies and infrastructures needed to compete in this transition phase. So this is the most sensible approach to sustaining and reinforcing Europe's competitiveness. Finally, while not regulatory, an environment for funding which inspires investments into biopharmaceutical breakthroughs is crucial. We're completely lacking this as Europe. And remember, when you asked about pharma and individual companies, we source a lot of our innovation from a functioning biotech sort of like startup environment, and it's totally insufficient and underdeveloped in Europe. Mm-hmm. So we need a more attractive place to fund and scale up life science innovation in Europe.
So what would you, as said again of Bayer Pharmaceuticals, like to see from the Greek government maybe in order to invest in Greece further? And do you see opportunities, and what are the main obstacles? I'm guessing there are some that you identify.
Oh, how do you want me to answer that? Of course, I see.
Honestly.
Of course, I see potential in Greece, both as a partner in innovation and as a country with the talent, the scientific capabilities, the geographic positioning to play a greater role in the European life science management. We were with our CEO roundtable meeting, which comes together in some location around the world once a year. We were in Athens last April, and we were very encouraged by the Prime Minister's clear commitment to innovation during the meetings that we had with him. That kind of leadership sends a strong signal to the industry, and it creates a foundation for deeper collaboration. So taking also into account the solid steps of the Greek economy overall in recent years, with more growth, a primary surplus, these are all very, very positive signals. But while I say that, and I think this is nothing new to anyone in the room, there are major concerns also about the sustainability of the healthcare system. Years of austerity have led to chronically low public health funding, which combined with the highest level of mandatory discounts and clawbacks across all of Europe has created a very difficult environment for companies operating in your country. Between 2012 and 23, I think if the numbers are correct, that since the overall market grew 65%, public investment in your country actually declined by 23%, and patient out-of-pocket contributions increased by almost 80%. These figures do not go down well if you want long-term innovation-driven growth. So Greece, very low medicine prices are also a real problem. That's obvious that we state that, but I understand your constraints, fiscally speaking, but they lead to unintended consequences. That can include things like product withdrawals, supply shortages, and parallel trade going out of Greece and shortening the availability of medicines and of innovation in your country. This is precisely why we caution against linking regulatory data protection to national level access metrics. Countries like Greece, where pricing and budget constraints are acute, would be disproportionately affected. So from our perspective, the next step is clear. We need bold policy actions that support innovation, ensure more sustainable pharmaceutical funding, and those that create a stable, predictable business environment. That includes modernizing access and reimbursement systems, but also rethinking the clawback mechanisms. And of course, finding new models of collaboration between the public and private sectors, especially in R&D and manufacturing.
So thank you so much, Mr. Oelrich, for these insightful reflections. No one can argue that we stand at a pivotal point for Europe's pharmaceutical sector. The choices we make today obviously will impact not only our competitiveness as a union, but also our long-term resilience as far as the health sector goes. I also think no one can question the critical role of continued collaboration, you mentioned it, between all players. So thank you again for joining us from Paris, and well, I hope next time we see you in Athens.
I hope so too. Enjoy the rest of your conference. Thanks for having me.